What I'd like to do is make sure that the next 45 minutes is worth your time, okay? Do you know how to write? Yes. Great. You go over here, pick up a piece of chalk. You're going to write questions. I want to make sure that in 45 minutes you walk out with what you want to show value for this particular course, okay? So think a little bit about why you're sitting here, and I hope he talks about this particular subject so that my question, my burning desire is answered. Anybody want to start? Great. How does UOP define leadership? Yeah, because Pacific, I think there's about 75% of the admissions information that you get, that the schools get, is about the same of what they're looking for. It's the other 25% that the schools kind of differentiate amongst their applicants, okay? We value leadership as one of those where something like ASDO is probably community service, right? Jack Dillenberg is just terrific in wanting those students come in with community service. I think a lot of schools want to see research. We love to see leadership. So if I was defining it to some degree, he's written that down. I will answer it because I'm going to show my presentation there too, but we'll go further in it. Other questions so that 45 minutes from now you walk out of here and you've got your main burning question answered. What makes Pacific different than other schools? I'm okay. That's good. Harmon, I'll turn over there. Great. Yep. When they graduate or when they come in? Yeah, okay. As a 3-year school, are they prepared? Good. Leadership opportunities as a graduate. Okay, one more, because the good news is some of my presentation kind of fits into that. That's great. Anybody else? 4 questions. That's it. Go. Good. How do you prepare leaders to be, dentists to be leaders in their practice? Not outside of their practice, but in their practice. Good. You look so disappointed. Yeah.
Why don't you think there's more dental schools that do a 3-year program?
Why do more programs not have a 3-year program?
Yeah.
Crazy. Great. You did well. You're done. Little round of applause for the gentleman writing the questions. Okay, Harmon, one more slide. How many of you think you're leaders? Okay. I'm going to start with you. Why do you think you are a leader? Yep.
I think experience.
Good. Experience. Give me a couple experiences. One in particular. Your best experience of leadership. I asked you first.
I worked at a dental assisting school.
Great.
And
did you teach the course? Did you have some kind of
lab?
Perfect. Agree with you. Up front, you think you're a leader. Why?
Because I know how to listen and work with a group to not only tell them my
Thank you.
but incorporate all ideas.
Good. I like that characteristic, the listening aspect of that, right? Good. Anybody else think they're leaders? Did we just have 2? Okay, 3.
I think it's about taking on an active role everywhere, not just in school, but in all aspects of school, like in community.
Good. I like that. All right. How many want to be leaders but don't think you are? I like that better. Okay, next slide. Because I'm going to probably go up with a lot of quotes here today. Why I like to study leadership, and I think some of the quotes give you succinct ways of saying whether you are or not. This is really powerful. Who's Henry Ford? Who cares, right? He's some old bastard. You can see him there. There's no doubt about that. The guy started Ford Motor Company, and he didn't invent cars, but he invented the assembly line of production. So cars were really expensive before that particular time until he decided to invent the Model T on an assembly line, and therefore really did well in that regard. So the quote is the main point here. Go ahead. This is what I thought I'd talk about. When I worked with Harmon on the subject material, these are the 3 areas that I thought I'd focus on. Are we okay with those? Raise your hand if you think you're okay with these. Anyone up there that, you know what, I don't care about any of those 3, and we'll go straight to the questions. I'm going to try to combine both of those in 45 minutes, but we'll be quick. We're okay. My guess is you're going, I don't know, what are you going to talk about? And let's just see what it goes. Go. Okay. You're going to read a lot of different magazines and a lot of different articles, and they're going to say the 7 qualities, they're going to say the 10 qualities, they're going to say 400 qualities of leaders. The bottom line is they're all somewhat about the same. So as we work down this particular list, I'd be thinking, do I possess those, or how do I acquire those? And I like the fact that honesty is at number 1. This is about ethics. And people really follow you, in my opinion, and will continue to follow you if you are open, honest, transparent, and you have ethics. It's as simple as that. If you're lying, cheating, and stealing, who wants to work not for you? And there's one of those propositions, or prepositions, I should say, that I would really change in your vocabulary. People work with you. They don't work for you. Otherwise, you've got here, and you got people here. No, I'd like to think that no matter who reports to me or whatever, we work together. They work with you, okay? But again, they're going to be looking for your brand and whatnot. Be the person that you want to be. You know that you want honesty and trust and integrity in your employees. It's got to start with you. Ability to delegate. I really like this, and this is some of the hardest part for us dentists because we're all pretty anal. If you look up the word anal in the dictionary, what you basically see is a dentist there, no other words. Okay? And they hate to do anything and delegate anything. I learned this from my assistant. I finally got an assistant probably about a decade or so ago, and I would tell her to do an assignment, and I would give her A to Z about that assignment. A to Z, I want you to do it, I want you to do it this way, and this is how and whatnot. Finally, one day, she said, why don't you do it yourself? And her point was, if you're going to spend that much time telling me how to do something, you really don't trust me or you don't trust in my abilities. And she was right. There's 2 ways to increase, or the main way to, if you want to increase productivity with yourselves, is to find people that you trust and delegate them and grow them. Communication. Wow, this is hard. I don't think I communicate really effectively, but I try really hard. Communication, no matter what, if there's one thing I would learn in this particular category is no matter what you say, it's what they hear is important. Are they the same things? Typically not. How can you tell? Feedback, body language, all of those. Tangentially here, there's a 7-38-55 rule. Anybody know that? 7-38-55 rule. It's really interesting about that. When you begin to work with a person, there's the like factor about them. You'll like 7% of them because of what they say. The words are great. But 38% greater increase in liking how they say it with their voice, their intonation, and whatnot. 55% is what their body says, right? And people have problems with relationships when they're incongruent. I'm looking at you. I like you, right? The words, how do they feel? Yeah. How about my body language? Sucks. You can say it, okay? So what it's saying is, she doesn't believe me because of the way I'm acting. My voice, no intonation, all of those. So think in terms of that, of how powerful just your way, the ability to communicate, how your body has to be into it, how you say it has to be into it. And what's the least important? Probably what you say. Don't spend all the time there. Spend the time on how to manage your emotions and whatnot. Sense of humor. This is about morale building. If you don't have a sense of humor in a work environment, it gets pretty dull. It gets pretty dull. So develop opportunities to have sense of humor. One company, first day on the job, basically they're going to find some situation to embarrass that person, which sounds kind of harsh, but at the same time, it's their way of saying, you know, if we can embarrass you and make fun of you or do whatever, you're part of our family. It's okay. So have some kind of regular opportunity to break the stress in there, and sense of humor is probably that. Confidence, wow. Second-year student was on a panel at the dental school. There were people in the audience who were applicants, and they asked her, what's it like to see your first patient? How do you handle that experience? How many think that's pretty scary? Yeah, I thought it was pretty scary when I sat down with the first patient. And the reply is what really, I think, made it worthwhile. The second-year student says, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. You're going to see that phrase on later on the slide. Don't forget that sometimes in being a leader, you have to fake you're a leader. But the more you fake it, the more you'll eventually make it, because you'll believe in yourself. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. Commitment. This is the easiest but the hardest to lose. Because a lot of times as you move up the leadership levels and you start delegating and whatnot, people start failing to see the commitment that you have. You're not working with them, they're working for you. So a lot of times you've got to have a work ethic that is stronger than the people who work with you. If not, they'll only work as hard as you do. So your commitment has to be exemplary in that regard. Positive attitude. Again, whether you think you can or you think you can't. We go back to that phrase a lot, and I won't say it hopefully too much more, but that positive attitude really carries. You can have some self-fulfilling prophecies saying, I question as a leader whether we're going to attain this goal. You're halfway home to letting them know. Because sometimes we think we've got to underestimate our ability so that we exceed our expectations, right? Set the expectations high, be positive that you can reach it, and then figure out the plan to do it, which sometimes takes a little bit of creativity. Things don't always fall into place. So a lot of times you've got to be creative and figure out different routes to get to that. It's not always a path of least resistance when it comes to creativity. And that means coming up a lot of times with the people who are following you and saying, hey, is there a different solution to this? I might not be totally creative in that, but can we collectively come in there? So don't be afraid to utilize the people around you. Intuition, it's your gut feeling. So many times that we sometimes go upstream from our gut. Go back up into honesty and ethics. I heard the best definition for ethics is when you look at a situation and it doesn't feel right. Ethics is almost that simple. I'm changing subjects there, but ethics is almost like that. That's an intuition. Even though you can rationalize in your own mind that doing some activity isn't illegal or whatnot or morally wrong, you know it is because your gut tells you that. Sometimes you get into a business situation in a leadership position and you got to go with that intuition that the path we're going doesn't quite feel right. Now start getting some feelers out there and say, am I correct? And that's an intuition thing. Don't avoid it. Don't set it over here to the side and be so focused business-wise that all the stats are there, all the data's there, but it still doesn't feel good. Ability to inspire is hard at first because sometimes you get so focused on being a leader. It might have been one of the last skills I'd like to think that I learned and then realized had I done that to begin with, it would have been much more effective. Inspiring is basically thinking that you have to inspire and taking the time. You're looking at somebody, they have doubt on their face. Take the time to say, what would I say? What would I like to hear if I'm that particular person? But go out of your way to appreciate people and try to figure out, are they looking that they need inspiration? Sometimes they need, I was going to be physical with that, and I don't think that's probably the way. Sometimes they need a stern lecture, but most of the time, people would like to kind of have, where is our goal? Can I make it? And it's as simple as saying, how you doing? Man, I'm having trouble with this. Let's see if we can work together on it because I know you can get there. I've seen you succeed before. You can get there. Let's work together toward that. But you got to look for those opportunities. The other opportunity is always appreciate people. It's one of the things that I try to do, go around work and say, what has that person done? Just ask yourself that question. Has this person done something like Harmon, who is just incredible as far as the logistics of me coming here? It's not always easy. I'm coming from Marin County. I've got to come over here. It's where, it's how, and how do I move around? Her communication, she gets back within 24 hours on an email. It's all those little things that I need to tell her that I appreciate. But all it took was, what do I appreciate about Harmon? I don't know all of you enough, but my sense is the more you work with other people, look for opportunities and appreciate them, and it'll get to inspiration, quite frankly. The last is in a different color because be decisive is one of the things that works for me. The people who are working with you and you need to make decisions, a lot of times there's a trickle-down effect. If you don't make the decision at the top, they cannot get their jobs done because they're waiting on you. Be decisive. Get as much information as you can, make a decision, and don't be afraid to get more information to change the decision. It's okay. But if you wait too long, basically the train has left the station and they're not working until you start making decisions. Be decisive. Questions on this? Okay. Again, this is as simple as Googling something and saying, hey, what are leaders in there? And continue to read those particular things because you're going to get different words. Get the ones that resonate with you. Yes?
Speaking of ability to inspire.
Yep.
When I first read that, I thought being a role model.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that could be a part of it?
Yeah. Can you be a role model for inspiration without being verbal?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's talking the talk and there's walking the walk. And leaders need to do both. Okay? The better you get at communicating that clearly and succinctly, being the words, the better you will be. Don't take it for granted, right? I mean, realize if you're not saying anything, they can read into that too. But at the very minimum, if it's leading by example, and that's where that commitment was such a strong thing, you've got to work every bit as hard, if not harder. I pride myself on, I get in the morning at about 6:15, and I usually leave about 6. And that's okay for me. And I don't care that people come in later than me or leave earlier than me. But nobody's going to outwork me. And if they do, those are the people moving up in the organization. Right? That's a good question. I like that. You've got to be a role model. Good. Okay. This falls up the other slide because you can get to the top by stepping on people, but eventually your character comes up. And it's your inspiration question. Am I a role model? They'll figure you out after a while. It takes hard to say, who's Johnny Wooden? Won 10 straight championships. Actually won 7 straight, 10 over a 12-year period. Not to correct you, but I am. Just kidding. That's nice that you knew that. I'm impressed with that. Who's the guy on the right? Yeah. For a hat. For a hat or a shirt. I'm going to give away 2 hats, 1 shirt. What was his name before Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Yeah. I grew up, he's probably 4 or 5 years older than me, not much older than me. Lou Alcindor, when he played at UCLA. So actually, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did not play at UCLA. Lou Alcindor did. Good, next slide. Okay, personal story, we always have those, right? I finally think of myself as a leader and try to follow those qualities, and getting there was the hardest part. You never think you are. And then sometime you arrive and somebody says, give a presentation on leadership, and you go, okay, let me throw some slides away. Let me put some slides up on there. And people would probably say you got to that position because you are lucky. Anybody know the definition of luck? Yeah, that's very good. Preparation meeting opportunity. Nobody really gets lucky. You're either prepared for the opportunity that comes in your path or you're not. You can have all the opportunities in the world. If you're not prepared for them, luck doesn't happen, and vice versa. And so my sense is I try to put myself, getting an M.B.A., getting a D.D.S., all of those things help prepare you for opportunities in the future. So get as much education as you can and in many areas as you can so that the opportunities that do arise, you actually see the opportunity, seize the opportunity, and get the opportunity. You really can't be a leader and do positions unless you put your hand up, right? I'll take that position. Sometimes the funnest positions are the ones that nobody wants to volunteer for, because you can make the most out of those. So just be there on time, put your hand up, and a lot of leadership comes with that. Always accept any chance to speak. Surveys show that one of the greatest fears, if not the greatest, is speaking in front of people. People would rather die, according to surveys, than speak. Okay? I was the same way. Went to dental school. I'm just the kid with the biology major, focused, wanted to go in, got there, went back to my hometown of Lodi, right down the block, and somebody gives me a call, Chamber of Commerce, says, would you mind speaking at lunchtime to the businessmen of your community, 300 businessmen? How many people would that intimidate? Yeah, I was dumb enough not to be intimidated. But actually, you then start to learning how to speak by doing it. And when you have no clue, you start reading books. Again, books, internet, all of those are online. One of the chief things on speaking is have 3 times more material than you need. Because then you don't have to worry about filling the time. One of the fears is filling the time, okay? I came in with so much material. I got there, and we're talking on education, right? So it's a subject that I was at least familiar with. Come in there and you walk in and there's 300 people and they're looking at you. Should you use notes? Should you not use notes? My recommendation is don't use notes. You can use a cube, 3x5 card with the 5 points, 3 points, whatever you want to make. You should be prepared to kind of come in and that. When I pulled up, what I realized is that the president of the University of Pacific had backed out last moment. He was going to speak on education, right? So now, of course, you know, the nervousness goes up. It's after lunch. What's the bottom line? I exceeded my expectations. Thought I held the audience, did well, and now I'm thinking to myself, I can do this. The only way to do it is to do it. And so never turn down a chance to speak no matter what it is. Whether you feel you're intimidated, whether the audience is too large, just do it. Accept running as an opportunity. A lot of leadership positions is a matter of running for office, and that's a lot of people don't like to lose. It's okay. Thomas Jefferson lost his first election, okay? It's okay. You got to kind of put your hand up, get out there and do it. Corollary to that is announce that you're running early. Any idea why? Jordan? Pardon? More people will meet. I like that. I hadn't thought about that as an answer, but he's right. So if you start telling people you're running early, they'll go, wow, tell me more about yourself. Give me what your platform is, what's your elevator speech, all of those kind of things, okay? Why else? If you run early, do you want to kind of?
Well, just like the next point, you get organized.
Yeah, good.
Get more of a
Right. Yeah. You're organized, you can get all the momentum going, but there's one last reason. Because it scares other people off. Wow. Craig Yarborough's running for office. He's this, that, or the other thing. Good or bad. It can cut both ways. It could stimulate more people to run too. Unless you go to the next point, which is getting your ducks in a row. So now if you're running early, getting your ducks in a row is kind of mean organize yourself, get them all lined up, and then move forward. I use it in terms of almost with meetings, especially where subjects are going to be talked about and there's going to be votes on it. Getting ducks in a row to me is meaning that if I'm on a committee and there is something that's going to be on there to be voted on, I've talked to everybody around that table and have a feeling of which way the vote's going to go. So the vote really takes place even before you come into the meeting, and if you have your ducks in a row, you know what the outcome is going to be and you're going to be prepared. And on top of that, if you need to change the direction, it's by talking to people in advance, getting their opinions and gently persuading them so that when your arguments come into the meeting, you can lead the discussion in a new way because you've done your homework before. Votes don't occur really at the table. They occur well before if you've done your preparation. Study leadership's pretty obvious. I like to read books. What kind of books? Autobiographies are great. Who do you think's a great leader? It's Thomas Jefferson. Great. Get a book, an autobiography on him or a biography and read about him. Anybody who you think is great is worth reading about typically. Typically. There's a big thing in the press, I think, oftentimes that they bring you down in some of the biographies, not your autobiography, but other biographies. That's okay. Sometimes you learn what not to be with that too. Questions on this slide? Yeah.
Would you recommend biographies or autobiographies?
Would I recommend biographies versus autobiographies? Probably both. I don't have any problem with it, right? But what you're getting in an autobiography is that person's congratulations almost, so you get a certain bias, but you got to know that. Corollary to some things there too. We talked about meetings and get your ducks lined up in a row. One thing I'd always remember coming into the meeting, that if a topic comes up and you can't argue the point both ways, you probably don't have enough information. The people who usually argue to you are just as passionate as you are. And having as much information about that subject and being able to kind of go in line with them allows you to shake your head and say, you know, you're right, I see your point, I see your point. And listening before you give your platform is very effective. I see your point, I see your point. But what you know is you've already studied that side of it, and you have counters to that. But if you don't study the other side and you only get your point across, I think you're missing the point sometimes. You're not trying to collaborate or be synergistic. I think today's Republicans and Democrats probably epitomize that. They're entrenched. They don't see the other side well compromised. Other questions on this? Was somebody over here? Good, thanks, Armin. Okay, if you're action, this is maybe my favorite one, because this is what being a leader is about. If you're not inspiring anybody, you're not challenging them to learn more, do more, all of the things that are saying up there, you're not a leader. You just say you are a leader. So the ultimate compliment to me is somebody coming up to you and say, wow, I really appreciated what you taught me, what you did here, whatever the point is. If you're not getting feedback like that, you're probably not leading anybody anywhere. For the shirt, John Quincy Adams, 6th president in the United States, right? Okay, this is a number question. This is the very first picture of a U.S. president. The very first picture of a U.S. president taken in a certain year. And that's going to be the question. Is guess what year it was when they took this picture. It's a guess. 1805, later. It's a guess. 1812, later. 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 April. Later. Getting closer, though. It's in the 18th century, so we don't have to go through every number yet. Less. Less. 43. Okay? Hat or shirt? It's a medium shirt, by the way.
Sure.
Medium shirt?
Sure.
Which arm are you going to put it on? No, I mean, orange or black?
The orange.
Okay. Yeah, 1843. It just blew me away when I saw this quote and then looked up on there. Interesting enough, as the 6th president, realized he was a president. He only served one term. Him and his father both only served one term. They came back, tried to be reelected, couldn't get reelected. Interesting enough, after that, he went back into the House of Representatives for 17 years. Can you imagine a president going back into the House of Representatives? Interesting. Fun. Okay. So now, how do you lead the profession? You've graduated. I think it's one of the questions up there. How do you become a leader? We're talking about organized dentistry. How much more time do I have? 15 minutes? Good. I think we'll be all right. Go. Next slide. Okay. If you want to know a little bit about the politics and whatnot, the American Dental Association is set up in a tripartite relationship, meaning if I'm a member, I have to belong to my local dental society, hence the local dental societies, 32. They're almost like 32 counties in the state of California that make up the California Dental Association. That's like a state. Within the state, though, is 17 districts, so there's essentially 17 states in the whole American Dental Association. Instead of 50 representatives, there's 17, and then there's American Dental Association. You belong to those. If you're interested in actually starting with that, volunteer at your dental society. It gets you on to the next steps. You don't start with the American Dental Association typically. You don't start with the state typically. You usually get out there in your dental organization. It's usually a county-wide or a couple of counties making it up. and you work your way up there. Myself, I got into dental planning, meeting planning, bringing speakers to my component, which is what it's called, dental society, or a component. Got some recognition in that area, and then you tend to get asked to do something on the state. Then you do a good job in the state, and then the American Dental Association said, we'd like you to do that same position when it comes to the American Dental Association. So keep it simple, know the politics. One thing I'd get used to when you get into politics, which is really hard to kind of stomach sometimes, because you sometimes make decisions on an issue that affects California, for example, but you may forego how it affects California because Texas might be different in your opinion on an issue, but you might go along with them because you form a coalition to really get to another major issue down there. It doesn't reflect to get used to politics. One of the things I learned there is don't let the perfect be the enemy of good. Anybody know what that means? Healthcare is like a primary issue. Jordan, you want to give it a try? Right. You don't move it forward. We can look at the Affordable Health Care Act for right or wrong, but if you go back to the Bill Clinton administration, he gave his wife Hillary the opportunity to go and get health care nationally. And they put this program forward, and it was perfect. But they kept hammering it perfect, and they never did compromise with the people on the other side of the aisle. So in an attempt to get totally perfect, they never even got anything better or good. Okay? We can argue about what it is now, but we had a predecessor there before that they were so arguing about making something perfect that you don't even get incremental improvement. And sometimes you get it shut down totally. So when you get into politics, just remember this, that sometimes you compromise because I want to move it one step before I need to move it another step or two steps. Don't bite the whole thing off. I really like this because it speaks back to the communication. A lot of times you can obfuscate an issue, okay? You can obfuscate an issue because it gets so complicated and you use terms that nobody understands and you miss the idea of trying to get together a small package of what you're trying to do. I'm the Associate Dean for Institutional Advancement. Sounds like a really fancy title. What do you do? Collapse it down to I turn dreams into reality. I invite people to join us financially and fundraise so that we can turn their dream, which is maybe moving our institution forward, and become a reality. I was Dean of Admissions for 10 years. I turned your dreams into reality in discussions. Keep things simple. I like Colin Powell. Question for a hat now. First African-American Secretary of State in the United States, correct? Who was the second? Politically astute group, I can tell. Condoleezza Rice, right? Right after him. Haven't had a Secretary of State entire 200 plus years, and followed immediately by her. White, orange, beige, black. Okay. The reason I put that up there too is he had a book, right? Doesn't mean read the book. I like biographies. I like people writing about different things. That was the point up here in life and leadership. Small story about Colin Powell. He spoke for the American Dental Association in Philadelphia in probably 2005. So you can imagine that there are 30,000 people coming to Philadelphia, and there's about 7,000 in the room to see him in the morning and the opening presentation. He literally drives himself, I think he was from New York at that particular time, drove himself to Philadelphia in his own car by himself, walked into the dental convention. Nobody knew who he was, and he says, I'm here to speak. Who are you, and when are you speaking? I think I'm speaking today at like 8 o'clock. Do you know where? No. And somebody literally took him, and he told the story. I thought it was pretty good. But basically a real confident guy, meaning he doesn't need his whole entourage around there. I can get around by myself, and I can figure out where to go to speak. Now, a lot of words up there, and I'm not going to go through them. What's the point of this? If you're in a dental office, what is the best thing you can do? Get yourself a mission, get yourself a vision, get your core values. Now you're starting to lead a team. Now you're a leader in that regard. Without it, what's the old saying? If you don't know where you're going, any path will do. You don't have to write all this down. You can go to our website if you want. This just happens to be what we do. Our vision is leading the improvement of health by advancing oral health. That's the dental school vision. Your dental office is probably going to have some variation, something along that. What's your mission? When you have a mission, what's nice is that every action you take then should be able to go to a bullet in your mission and say, we're improving ourselves on bullet number 3 with this particular decision. If you're making decisions that don't have anything to do with this, you're wasting your time. What time should we go out to lunch? Doesn't fit any of those. That's off the table. Let's get back to focusing on where our practice is moving. We can worry about lunch at 1 o'clock or whatever the decision is. But don't get off the tangents. If you're ever in a committee meeting and you're talking about things and an issue comes on the table, I motion that we do this, that, and the other thing. Where does it fit in our mission? Where will it move us forward? Next. Core values, these are our core values, the 7 of them. I think we pride ourselves on humanism. That's where it's at. But again, I won't go through these. The point is to get those so that people know what your values are. Remember the honesty being one of those values that we had as a leader. I recommend something along these lines that really say these are the important things that we as a group all agree on. Okay? All right. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Whew. One of the early learning lessons, when you graduate from dental school, you think you got to know everything. No, what you got to do is care more than the next person. Toothbrush I had in my office when we gave it out, we had, Oral B. And on there it was Dr. Yarborough and team, we care. And that's all we were going to do is out-care another office. We couldn't show you that we did better crowns. We couldn't show you anything else, but we were going to not be out-cared. Sorry, go back one there. Teddy Roosevelt. Which guy is he, by the way? The gentleman in the middle, there's 2 in the middle. Come on, you're killing me. Yeah, middle right, right? Left is George Washington, second to the left, Thomas Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln. Okay, we got to give away another hat, right? Do I have something on this? No, but I'll come up with a question. Huh? Who shot Abe Lincoln? I like it. Well, okay, we'll go. Because you know that. All right, here it is. This is it. Teddy Roosevelt is the youngest president to ever assume office. 42 years old, 322 days, something along those lines. Who to replace? So who? John Kennedy, I don't think was even alive or thought about. This is Teddy Roosevelt came into office replacing the president before him. Who was the president before? Wasn't, but a good guess. You're time-wise. Wasn't Wilson. See, now what I'd be doing, I'd be on my phone looking it up. All right, let's get a little more contemporary. Actually, it was McKinley. He was assassinated in office, okay? Here's your question number 2. Who is the second youngest president to assume office? John F. Kennedy, yeah, less than a year old. He actually gets notoriety by being elected into office. McKinley was assassinated, therefore putting Teddy Roosevelt in. White, orange, beige. Okay. Sorry, no more hats. You guys can leave now. Go. No. Know who you're leading. Okay. Go ahead. This is supposed to be you. How many of you were born after 1977? Great. These apply. Well, let's first of all say 50% of the workforce is in 2014. Do you realize how big of an impact that you're going to have by next year? How many of you crave feedback? I got to know how I'm doing, man. I got to know what I'm doing. Will you tell me? Am I succeeding? Anybody? Does it fit y'all? Why do I bring these up? You need to know the people you're leading. You want to be a great leader, you got to be thinking, what feedback can I give this particular person so that they will continue to work with me? You're in a hurry for success. So they're going to say, when can I get a promotion? When can I promotion? When can I do this? When can I do this? You need to know that to some degree. You've got to continue to inspire them and say, that is possible. What's the next thing? Sense of purpose is big with you all. A lot of people work for money. Strong commitment to community service, want a roadmap to success. How do I get there? They want mentoring. Does it fit you? Any of these you would object to? Okay, next. Apologize, I'm going somewhat quickly only because I respect your time. Time's one of those valuable commodities that I don't want to take advantage of. Okay. Lifestyle. My generation lives to work. You work to live. Yes or no? Anybody say no? Love to work. All right. In front row, she lives to work. She's going to be calling me on Monday saying, hey, what about my application? Don't have to lead if necessary. The reason I put that in red is plenty of opportunities to lead because your generation supposedly doesn't like to lead. I'm really happy with where I'm at. I would rather do something different. I'd rather go home rather than have to spend the time to lead. So you're going to have plenty of opportunities if you want to take them. Must have a mission. You want to work for an organization. Remember we talked about honesty and having your mission, values, and core mission, vision, and core values. Have those in your life, let alone in your work. They're going to live with their parents. You guys all figure, how many of you will go back after graduation and live with your parents? Yeah, a lot of you are honest, and that's okay. I mean, we as this generation, my kids, I haven't come back yet. My son's graduating from dental school in June. It'll be interesting. I think he's off to Texas. My daughter never came back after graduation, so this is good. Realize what motivates them. What motivates them. It isn't really about the money. Typically, you'll take more time off. So you can't throw more money at the situation with your contemporaries. It's really about what do you want to do and accomplish in your private life that I can help with. They want to be mentored. And they like bonuses, again, back to that desire to lead. It gives you plenty of opportunity for leadership here. Go ahead. Leadership Millennials, mentoring. This is what some of the suggestions are. You can see by the Harvard Business Review. I like this article because they talk about reverse mentoring. You have a lot to offer people like me. A lot of times it's in IT, social media, and whatnot, so don't be afraid to trade off some services with older people because you have a lot to offer. Start thinking in those terms. A good organization will take advantage of you and move you up fast in areas that are deficient in. Group mentoring, you can see that where a lot of you would come peer-to-peer or even have one mentor but multiple mentees. Those are the things that you're going to probably look forward to as you're getting into business as well. Anonymous mentoring, I thought that was kind of interesting. Anonymous meaning basically getting a mentoring outside of a company, and they get paid to do that so that there's not an invested. They will be able to have an unfiltered view of what you're doing rather than maybe a conflict of interest when they're within the organization. Go ahead. This is the thing that you have to watch yourself as you move up leadership. You have to be reflective in there. Am I actually abusing? Because leading usually implies that there's power. There's a differential in power. Watch yourself in this. I like this guy, great beard. Basically an Englishman back in about the turn of the century, 1800s, the 1900s, rather than the last turn of the century. But it's something that keeps me focused, and I kind of review back to, am I actually abusing anything that my position? It's really powerful. What it then applies is the next sentence that I didn't put up there because I like it a little more succinctly. Basically, that good men tend to, great men tend to be bad men. So you always want to watch that as you're going on there. I don't think it's necessarily true. I have a lot of great men, but realize the tendency that when you get all powerful, you tend to just make decisions unilaterally. You don't get collaborative. Good. So in summary, find a mentor, study leadership, fake it till you make it. We talked about that. Look for opportunity to lead. The last one is the early thing. Start doing that, and you'll find that people actually want you to lead because they know you appreciate them and that you inspire them. So I'm going to get to some of these other questions. How much time, Harmon? Can I have 5 more minutes? A little less than 5. Which question? I think UOP would define leadership the same. What makes Pacific different? The way we treat our students. Humanism is one of our core values. What does that mean? It means treating you that you're working with us. It's probably that concept. It means you're a doctor when you walk in. We're going to call you Dr. Yarborough. My first semester, somebody paged Dr. Yarborough, and I thought, wow, this would be great. I have to meet Dr. Yarborough. And after about 4 or 5 pages, somebody said, maybe you should answer that. I picked up the phone, and I said, this is Craig Yarborough, but I'm not a doctor. Well, when you step into the building, you are. So there's a mutual exchange of respect. So what I did is tell my friends, you know what, you should call me, and here's the number at school that you should call me at so that they could page me more. The 3-year program, I'm going to just finish with that, Harmon, if that's okay. The 3-year program seems to be so distinct, but realize that it's a 3-year school. How many 4-year schools are there out there? Pardon? Yeah, there's 64 dental schools out there. How many of them are 4-year? 0. What do you mean? We're a 3-year school. We start in July, go to June. We are 3 years, actually. The 4-year dental schools typically start in August or September, graduate in May. They're 3 years, 8 months. So already there's a differential there, correct? Most dental schools will take the first summer off, take another 4 months off of 3 years, 8 months, and you have 3 years, 4 months. Their curriculum is generally reduced in the other 2 summers. And so essentially when you look at time, we have the same amount of hours as all the other dental schools, but fewer hours on the vacation side of that, okay? We're essentially 12 quarters, which you'll hear at UC Davis on quarter system know that three quarters make up a year. So we're essentially a 4-year school doing it in there. Why are we the only ones? Back in the late 70s, there were probably a dozen schools that I applied to that were 3 years. They slowly went down. The government gave you money to jumpstart more dentists because there was a dental shortage. And they said, if you go to a 3-year program, we'll pay you this much money. But you have to use it over so many years, and then after that, you have to sustain it yourself. So when the money ran out, all the other schools said, you know what, we can't do that. What the faculty was saying is basically, you know what, we like our vacations in the summer. We took it as a chance that our outcomes measurements, where every bit is good, we will be unique. We will have a niche in this particular market. We will give you 1 more year, your career back. Value's $200,000, and that was it. So on that, please give Harmon a round of applause. I appreciate you coming in and spending the afternoon. I know it's been a long day. It's really fulfilling to look in your eyes, and what was amazing that all of you stayed awake. I sincerely appreciate that. I wish you the best. Do yourself a favor, call every dental school that you want to go to and try to establish a relationship. Find out the ones that actually pick up the phone. In my opinion, I like that particular effort because of the fact that they're trying to establish relationships with you. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call them and get the information you need. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.